Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of X-Men the Animated Series Season 2, Episode 2, Till Death Do Us Part 2. This originally came out October 30th, 1993, right before Halloween. Before I jump into this review, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm doing everything X-Men on this channel. It's a new channel, so I can really use all the help I can get. You're going to be getting reviews of comics, shows, figures, toys, everything X-Men related, so make sure to hit that sub button. So Morph goes back to the X-Mansion and he's like, Xavier's school. I belonged here once. I was an X-Man. But this is where Mister Sinister shows up and is like, I sense your determination fading, Morph, making sure you're still committed to our purpose to destroy the X-Men. And you see that he has obviously influenced Morph in these awful ways, and he's saying things like, but friends don't betray friends, Morph, they don't abandon them. So even though we see at the end of the episode he put the bug in Morph's head, that caused him to lean into that thought pattern. I like they keep bringing it up in the show. It makes the writing better, and it makes the character story more interesting for Morph, and going back to that incident where Cyclops left him behind in season 1, and that it's addressed by Wolverine, addressed by Cyclops, really addressed by the X-Men through this episode, which was effective. But we start getting hints at Mr. Sinister's grand plan, where he specifically wants Cyclops and Jean Grey. And as a result of this, they have the honeymoon from hell here. They're greeted by Ruckus, who I thought was really cool, and his sound waves just look sick in the animation. And then we see the rest of the Nasty Boys, where we got Gorgeous George, Slab, and Hairbag, and they're working for Sinister, and he has them put the mutant collars on Jean Grey and Cyclops that we saw at Genosha. They even referenced Genosha here, so you wonder how Sinister got his hands on those. Now, leaving that story for a second, a really standout scene in this episode is actually when we see the Friends of Humanity conference, and we see Creed again. He's like, tomorrow belongs to humanity, a humanity cleansed of this foul mutant disease. This is when he brings out Jubilee, and she's like, why do you hate us? What do we ever do to you? And the great moment here is he says, you were born, and then Wolverine shows up from above and slices the Friends of Humanity banner in half. Great just visual there in a kid's animated show, and a very cool moment for Wolverine. And he has a great line here where he's like, if you knew how much bubblegum I had to sniff to find you. So good. Now, Beast and Rogue had went to see Storm in her hospital bed, and that's slowly where they start connecting the dots that something is up here, that they're being played. Then they connect it with Gambit, and this is when Professor X shows up, and he says, we may be all under attack by a most unusual weapon, a neural disruptor which alters brain waves, causing its targets to behave in strange, even irrational ways. But this is when the gig is up for Morph here, because Wolverine shows up and smells Morph right away, and he calls him out. And this is where the Morph, as Professor X says, he's out of control, destroy him, but that's really where he lost it there. He should have not said that. That Professor X would never said that, as Gambit notices. That's why he throws the card in front of him, and it makes him stand up, and they could see it's not really Professor X. Now, a cool moment here is when it's a Wolverine Morph showdown, and Wolverine says to Morph, I know you feel betrayed, Morph. I tried to make Cyclops go back for you, and Beast, Cyclops had to leave you behind to save the rest of us. Maybe he was wrong, but that's no reason for revenge. This will also be mimicked in the scene with Jean Grey at the end of the episode when she's telling Morph this as well, that he had to do it for the team Cyclops. And I like that they add this in. They could have went not bringing up this every time they talk to Morph, but it added more heart to the story, more tragedy, more character, and it would have just been boring if it was just them trying to calm Morph without bringing up that elephant in the room. But Morph's like, who are you trying to convince? Me or yourself? And it's this cool moment where he turns in to Wolverine. We get a little Wolverine versus Wolverine standoff. But Morph fools Jubilee here, and she shoots the wrong Wolverine. But leading the transition to make sense of why Morph would even go to Cyclops and Jean is Beast saying he will go after the X-Man he has the most reason to hate, which is Cyclops. So you're getting that payoff there. Now, we get to go back into Sinister's headquarters here, which are really cool. And just visually, he's a cool looking character. And he's like to Jean and Cyclops, your whole lives I've watched you, tracked you, studied you. Very creepy. And he's like, you are the prototypes, the chosen ones. And we get to see, you know, a little Cyclops and little Jean. And he's like, from your offspring, I will control the future of all human creatures on Earth. Sinister. So he wants to use this as the master bloodline of unbeatable mutants who will be his slaves. And then he's like, through you, I shall give birth to the future. So he brings out this tentacle-looking thing from the ground, puts it on Scott, and I guess he got Scott's seed here, which is very strange. It looks like a collector's coin, but I did like his eyes glimmered there. But what I liked about that line, give birth to the future, it actually connects to the next scene when Storm is talking to Jubilee, where she says, for every human who gives in to hate and fear, there are hundreds that are willing to see the truth. They are the future. So you're getting a real future, positive future, the right future compared to the vision of the future that Sinister has. It's a nice juxtaposition. So Morph shows up to this party at Sinister's, and he reveals he was the priest to Jean and Cyclops. So it's not a true marriage. And this is where Morph yells at Cyclops for him to die, and Jean's like, Cyclops did what he had to do for the good of the team. What you would have done in this place. What I liked about this, though, is we got a moment where Sinister gets to monologue a bit, but he explains the story of what happened with him and Morph, and when he found Morph, and he healed Morph's broken body. He's like, I gave you new life, but your mind was beyond repair, so you became two people, the one you will recognize as Morph, and the one who interested me, the one who wanted revenge on his betrayer. So what I like about the show is it, again, elects to make some kind of sense of the motivation of Morph there. Even though he's really controlled by this bug that's being put in his head, it's still feeding off that feeling he might feel of betrayal. Now, the X-Men show up and they in a showdown with the Nasty Boys. I love when Gorgeous George grabs Gambit. Rogue goes, keep your sticky fingers to yourself, you walking tar pit. It was a great line. And I love when Beast quiets Ruckus. He quotes Alfred Lord Tennyson. So funny. They take care of them pretty easy. And then Sinister comes out. We got to see him do some cool stuff with him shooting them. And Cyclops has a good writing here, what he says to Morph. He's like, Morph, you got to help us. Look, whatever happened, you're still part of the team. You're still one of the X-Men. It motivates Morph, and it shows why Cyclops is a good leader in those type of motivational speeches. It snaps Morph into focus. He goes up to Sinister, and he's like, you kept me alive and the evil that's in me, but the worst of us still has some good. Good writing there, I like that. But unfortunately, his gun does nothing on Sinister, which I'm fine with. But what I wasn't crazy about was Cyclops then just easily gets out of his restraints there, where I thought it would have been better payoff if maybe Morph shot them off or did something more clever to get him out. He could have done it the whole time. He just decided now, I got enough strength, I'm out. It was a very lazy approach to him getting out of that, which is not like this show. So that was a letdown. Now, Cyclops' beam really affects Sinister really well, and that causes them to retreat, and the Nasty Boys and him escape. But Cyclops is just angry at Sinister. He's upset now. He's going home, unmarried. His honeymoon was ruined, but Jean's like, married in our hearts. But I love when she's saying these lines to Cyclops that Wolverine would be jealous of. Of course, he's just like watching there, and then he turns his head and he's just like, where's Morph? But Morph pieces out. And Beast has a good line. Morph may be afraid of what he would do if he stays with us. He must learn to deal with what he has become. Where probably the worst line of the show today comes is next, where Wolverine says, he's my friend. He's the only one who could ever make me laugh. The ever make me laugh line was so just, what? It was just bad. I didn't like that. And he's like, I'm not going to desert him this time. So it sets up that Wolverine is going to still have in his mind and make that a priority to save Morph. Now we see Professor X at the end meets Magneto, who's completely fine. So it's not what he saw in that image that Morph had set him up on, so he knows it's a lie. And he says, I sense the lingering presence of something sinister. And it's a trap, so it's to be continued. But overall, this episode I wasn't crazy about. And it's interesting with this show because I look at Days of Future Past as well, and I love the part ones of part twos way better right now. Something about both part twos are a little flat, particularly this episode was pretty flat to me and had bizarre moments like Cyclops getting out so easy and having that really just not great line by Wolverine about how Morph was the only one who made him laugh. Stuff like that. But I do like the stuff with Sinister. I do like what they do with Morph, and I like Beast gets more action in this episode and good lines. I just think this is a more forgettable episode at the end of the day and not one of the best of this show. It's just very okay, but it wasn't bad. So I am going to give this one a 7.8, but it's one of my least favorites so far as I'm going on this journey of rewatching this show. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Please make sure to subscribe. We're doing every episode of this show, and I'll see you next time.